Now that is class. Young, elegant, knowing how to live, my husband Gregory exclaimed, wrapping his arm around another woman right in front of me. We were in the Astor, the lavish Park Avenue restaurant where we used to celebrate our most special moments. I managed a faint smile, but inside I felt my heart being squeezed in a fist. He hadn't invited me here for a reconciliation. He'd invited me to a parade of my own humiliation. Not like you, who's only good for sitting at home, he continued in a dismissive tone. But Gregory didn't know. Under the table, my hands were busy. I opened my banking app. One tap, then two, and in a matter of seconds, all his credit cards were frozen. An hour later, when he arrogantly beckoned the waiter to pay a bill that ran into the thousands, his face turned as pale as wax when the payment terminal emitted that unmistakable sound. Transaction declined. And in that precise moment, I could breathe again. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well and finding your happiness. Let me know in the comments what city you're reading this from. I'm curious to know where you are. That morning, a message notification chimed on my phone at exactly 9:00 a.m. I was in the kitchen of our penthouse making breakfast. A penthouse that for the last 3 months had felt more like a ghost house because Gregory was almost never there. I pulled the phone from my apron pocket. The screen lit up with his name Gregory, followed by a short message that made me frown. Lunch today, 1:30 p.m. The Astor. No emojis, not a single term of endearment. No, I love you like he used to say, not even a question or a request. Just a dry command that felt utterly alien. I stared at the screen for a long time, trying to decipher what it meant. The Astor was a fine dining institution in the heart of Manhattan, a place we only visited for our anniversaries or to celebrate one of Greg's major business triumphs. Why would he suddenly summon me there? Today wasn't a special day, not our wedding anniversary. Not my birthday, not his. I tried texting back, "What are we celebrating?" but 3 minutes passed, with no reply. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. He was online. His status showed he was active. But he chose to ignore me, as had become his habit lately. It had been 4 months since Gregory had completely changed. The man who used to come home on time, who asked every day, "Did you eat honey?" who always held me before we fell asleep, had become a cold, indifferent stranger. His excuses were always the same: a huge project, an important meeting clients from out of town. I tried to understand, to be a supportive wife, but over time I felt a chasm opening between us. Just last night, he hadn't come home at all, sending only a brief text at 11:00 p.m., late meeting, staying at a hotel near the office. I didn't ask any more questions. I was tired of arguing. Every time I tried to express my feelings, Gregory accused me of being overly sensitive, of exaggerating, of being possessive. But today, he had invited me to lunch at our special place. Maybe he wanted to fix our relationship. Maybe he realized we had been living like strangers under the same roof for too long. A small flame of hope ignited in my chest. Still, something felt off. My intuition whispered, something's not right. I decided to prepare myself properly. If this was a chance to save our marriage, I didn't want to waste it. I opened my closet and chose my favorite cream-colored midi dress, the one Gregory always used to compliment. "You look absolutely stunning," in that he'd once told me. I paired it with a tailored navy blue blazer and 4-inch stilettos. I applied subtle makeup, gathered my hair into a low, sleek bun, and picked up the high-quality leather handbag he had given me on our second anniversary. I wanted to be perfect for him. Before leaving, I looked at myself in the large entryway mirror. A 32-year-old woman with a slightly weary look in her eyes stared back. When was the last time I had felt beautiful? When was the last time Gregory had looked at me with that old admiration? I shook my head, chasing away the negative thoughts. Today would be different. Today we would start over. The Uber ride to the Astor took 20 minutes. On the way, I tried calling Gregory several times, but he didn't answer. I sent him a text. "On my way, see you there." Only one check mark appeared. The message wasn't even delivered. For some reason, that bad feeling grew stronger. When my car pulled up to the restaurant, my heart began to pound. The Astor stood majestically with its classic architecture, large windows draped in velvet and a grand carved wooden door. A valet immediately approached, politely opening my door. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Welcome to the Astor." I stepped inside and was greeted by the faint scent of scented candles and the soft melody of classical music. The restaurant's interior always mesmerized me. A huge crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling tables were set with snow-white linen tablecloths. The chairs were plush, velvet, and fresh floral arrangements adorned every corner. This was a place where the wealthy celebrated their success, a place where every dish was a work of art. "Good afternoon," Do you have a reservation? The hostess asked, dressed in an elegant black uniform and wearing a professional smile. Gregory Wallace, I replied. She checked her tablet and nodded. Ah, yes, Mr. Wallace has already arrived. Right this way, please. He had already arrived. That meant he was early. Maybe he was serious about this lunch. Maybe he had prepared something special. Hope began to swell again, overpowering the doubts that had plagued me. We walked between tables past patrons, chatting quietly and enjoying their meals. And then I saw him. Gregory was sitting at our usual table in the corner by the large window. He wore a crisp white shirt with the gold cufflinks I had given him, black suit trousers, and the Swiss watch he always boasted about. But something was wrong. He wasn't alone. Sitting next to him was a young woman with long, wavy, ash-blonde hair. She wore a skin-tight red dress that highlighted every curve of her body. A multitude of gold jewelry adorned her neck, wrists, and fingers. Her makeup was bold, deep red lips, a highlighter that made her cheekbones gleam, and dramatic eyelash extensions. She was laughing at something, her hand resting on Gregory's arm in a gesture far too intimate for a mere business colleague. And Gregory was smiling. A smile I hadn't seen in a very long time. A smile that used to be reserved only for me. My steps faltered. I couldn't breathe. The hostess's hand was still pointing toward the table, but I was frozen, unable to move. Ma'am, she called, a note of concern in her voice. Gregory looked up and saw me. There was no guilt in his eyes, no surprise, no panic. Just an indifferent gaze, as if my arrival was something he had already planned. As if this was all part of a script he had written. And then I understood. This wasn't an invitation to reconcile. It was an invitation to my execution. I forced myself to walk forward, though each step felt like walking on broken glass. The hostess led me to the table. The very table that was once filled with happy memories had now become the stage for my public execution. Gregory didn't stand up from his chair. He remained seated, relaxed, his arm draped possessively over the back of the woman's chair. Ah, you finally made it, he said in a neutral tone that felt like a slap. No warm smile, no affectionate greeting, just a cold statement, as if I were a guest who was late to an unimportant event. The woman beside him turned and looked me up and down with a critical eye. Her lips, painted bright red, curved into a smirk, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, a smile that held a million condescending meanings. Please have a seat, ma'am. The hostess pulled out a chair for me, a seat that forced me to look directly at a scene I never wanted to witness. I sat down, slowly placing my handbag on my lap. I clutched its handle tightly as if it were the only thing keeping me from collapsing right there. Anna, I'd like you to meet someone, Gregory said in a formal tone, as if introducing a new business partner. This is Crystal. Crystal, this is Anna, my wife. Well, my soon-to-be ex-wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife. The words pierced me deeper than any knife. I looked at Gregory, searching for a sign that this was all a nightmare, that the man before me wasn't the Gregory who had vowed his eternal love in front of our families, who had cried with joy when I accepted his proposal, who had told me I was the only woman he would ever love. But the eyes looking back at me were those of a stranger, cold, empty, without a hint of remorse. Hi, Anna, Crystal cooed in a deliberately sweet, almost cloying voice. Greg has told me so much about you. It's nice to finally meet you. So much about you. That meant they talked about me often. Who knows what Gregory had told her about me? For some reason, that thought tightened the knot in my chest even more. Likewise, I replied dryly, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't know what else to say. My brain seemed to shut down, trying to process this absurd situation, but failing. Gregory picked up a menu that was already open on the table, not giving me a second to recover from the shock. Let's order. Crystal, what are you in the mood for? Don't be shy. Order whatever you want. It's on me. Crystal let out a silly giggle, touching Gregory's arm with a seductive gesture. Oh, Greg, you're so generous. I think I'll have the lobster thermidor and the truffle pasta. Oh, and what's the best wine here? The 2011 Sassicaia. Gregory answered with an enthusiasm he never showed me anymore. It's expensive, but it's worth it. We'll get a bottle for the two of us. For the two of us, not the three of us. I sat there like a statue, an uninvited spectator at their painful performance. A waiter approached and meticulously took down their order. Lobster, thermidor, black truffle pasta, a wagyu steak, foie gras, several other luxurious appetizers whose names I didn't even recognize, and a bottle of wine whose price could cover a month's rent. And for the lady, the waiter asked, turning to me politely. A glass of water, please, I replied quietly. Gregory snorted. Water, Anna. This is a Michelin-starred restaurant, not some diner. Order something decent. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass him, I thought. Him. Oh, come on, Crystal chimed in with a look of false wisdom. Maybe she's on a diet or something. Intermittent fasting is all the rage now. They say it's really good for you, for women of a certain age. My throat went dry. I was 32, and this woman who couldn't have been a day over 25 already considered me old. The waiter gave an awkward nod, wrote down my simple glass of water, and scurried away as if eager to escape the palpable tension at the table. As soon as the waiter left, Gregory leaned back in his chair and looked at me with an unreadable expression. It was a mix of satisfaction, triumph, and something darker, as if he were savoring every second of my suffering. "Well, Anna," he began in a relaxed tone, as if we were discussing the weather, "I invited you here because I believe you have the right to hear it from me directly. It's better than you hearing it from someone else or spying on me like you've been doing lately." Spying on him. I had never spied on him. I had only tried to reach my own husband because he never came home. Crystal and I have been together for almost 6 months. Gregory continued, taking Crystal's hand on the table in a display of sickening intimacy, and I'm convinced she is the perfect woman for me. So I'll be moving forward with our divorce as quickly as possible. 6 months. That meant it all started right when he stopped coming home, when he became cold and distant, when I started feeling that something had changed, and he insisted I was being paranoid. "Look at Crystal. She's beautiful, young, she has class," Gregory said, praising her in front of me as if I were nothing. "She has an incredible sense of style. She always knows the trendy places to go. She's social fun. Not like you who, well, all you do is sit at home. You never bother with self-improvement. It's the same thing day after day. You're boring. A real homebody." Every word that left his lips was poison, slowly killing me from the inside. I, who had always supported his career, who had given up my own job when he said he needed a wife to focus on our home, who always made sure he had everything he needed. Now, he was calling me a boring, stagnant housewife. Crystal smiled smugly and stroked Gregory's hand possessively. "It's just that Greg and I have the same vibe, We like the same things. We have the same hobbies, the same circle of friends. That's why we clicked from the very beginning, right, babe? Absolutely," Gregory replied, looking at her with the same devotion he once had for me. "That's why I'm sure she's the one. And you, well, you were a mistake I made in the past. A mistake." That's what he called me now. 7 years of marriage. 7 years in which I had loved him with all my heart. 7 years of building a life together, and now he was saying I was a mistake. I felt my phone vibrate in my purse. With trembling hands, I took it out. It was a notification from our joint banking app, the joint account we had created for our family funds, for our future, for the children we had planned to have. The balance in there was also the result of my hard work of years of savings we had accumulated together. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. It was no longer sadness I felt, not the pain that overwhelmed me. It was something colder, sharper, an anger that was slowly hardening into resolve. I looked at Gregory and Crystal, busy laughing and planning their future as if I were a mere spectator. I saw how Gregory was trying to cast me aside after everything I had given him. I saw how Crystal looked at me with contempt, as if I were a used, worthless object. And I decided I would not cry here. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I would make them regret this. Slowly, I opened my purse on my lap, making sure no one could see. My fingers navigated to the banking app. The screen showed the dashboard of our joint account with a balance that would make anyone smile. The result of investments, Gregory's bonuses, and money from my job before I left it. I glanced up at the couple in front of me, still lost in their own world. Then, taking a deep breath, I began to act. The real show was about to begin. The waiter arrived with a large tray bearing their first appetizer, foie gras artistically plated, garnished with edible gold leaf, and a red berry sauce that glistened under the chandelier light. The aroma was exquisite, the presentation perfect, like a work of art, too beautiful to eat. But to me, it was all tasteless. "Ooh, here it is," Crystal exclaimed, clapping her hands softly in delight. Her eyes sparkled at the sight of the lavish dish. "Greg, you know how much I adore foie gras. You're the best." Gregory beamed his chest, puffing with pride. "Of course I do. I've already memorized your tastes. Not like some people who, after 7 years together, still don't get what I want." He shot a pointed glance at me as he delivered the last line, a blatant jab in my direction. I just stared at my glass of water, trying to keep my expression neutral, despite the storm raging inside me. "Have a bite, sweetie," Crystal said, feeding Gregory from a small fork, a gesture so intimate and shameless it was as if I weren't even there. Gregory opened his mouth and accepted the piece, looking at Crystal with an expression that made my stomach turn. "Delicious," he said after swallowing. "See, this is what an attentive woman does. She feeds you, takes care of you, not just waits to be served." I gripped the phone in my lap tighter. The banking app was still open, showing a list of accounts and credit cards linked to the primary account. The supplementary credit cards were in his name, but I was the primary account holder, meaning I had full administrative control. It was a setup he had agreed to years ago when I managed all the household finances. "Oh," Anna Crystal suddenly said, turning to me. Her voice was syrupy sweet, but her eyes held a hidden mockery. "I'm curious. What do you do all day at home? I mean, Gregory works from morning till night. He must come home exhausted, and there's no one at home who understands him. So now it was my fault. I, who made sure the house was immaculate every day, that food was ready, and that all of Gregory's needs were met, was now the one who didn't understand him." "Crystal, don't be like that," Gregory said in a tone that was supposed to sound conciliatory, but I knew it was pure facade. Anna tried. "It's just that her efforts aren't enough for me. I need more than a housewife who only knows how to cook and clean." "Ah, I see." Crystal nodded with an air of superiority. "No wonder Gregory is so stressed. He has no one to talk to about more intellectual topics at home, right? That's why he's so comfortable with me. We can talk about business, investments, travel, everything that's more adult and elegant." Elegant. There was that word again. The woman sitting there in a too-tight red dress with too gaudy jewelry and too bold makeup was lecturing me about elegance. The waiter returned this time with the main courses. Lobster thermidor under a steaming cream sauce truffle pasta sprinkled with top-grade Parmesan and a perfectly seared Wagyu steak. Each dish was served with grace, garnished with microgreens and artistic sauces. "Is all of this just for the two of you?" I finally said, unable to hold back any longer. Gregory looked at me, raising an eyebrow. "What do you want some?" "Oh, sorry. You said you only wanted water. Besides, it's my money. I can spend it on whoever I want." His money, he said, when half the money in that joint account came from my job. Before I quit, when half the investments we made were my idea and my contribution. But now he was taking all the credit. "Well, yeah," Crystal chimed in, delicately cutting into her lobster. "Besides, it looks like Anna is watching her figure, which makes sense. At her age, you have to start paying more attention to your appearance, especially when things start to sag." She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was crystal clear. Humiliation disguised as concern. A classic mean girl tactic. "Crystal, you're so clever," Gregory laughed. "Diplomatic, but direct. Now, that's a smart woman. Not like those who just sulk in silence when there's a problem." They both laughed. The sound of their laughter made some patrons at a nearby table turn around. I could feel their curious gazes on me. I could hear the whispers starting to circulate, but Gregory and Crystal didn't care. Or maybe they even enjoyed the attention. Under the table, my fingers started moving. I opened the transfer menu in the banking app and entered the account number for my personal checking account, an account Gregory didn't know about. I had opened it secretly 3 months ago when I started to feel that something was wrong with our marriage. The total liquid balance in the joint checking and savings was $785, $280, not a small sum. It was the fruit of years of work, Gregory's bonuses, and the money from the sale of my old car. My hand trembled slightly as I typed in the amount to transfer, but I no longer cared. They wanted to play a game. Fine, I'd play too. "Oh, Greg," Crystal called out suddenly in a honeyed voice. "After lunch, let's go shopping on Madison Avenue. I want to check out that handbag you told me about at the boutique." "Of course," baby Gregory replied without a second thought. "Buy whatever you want. Consider it a gift for being so patient with me." Patient. 6 months of an affair, and now she was being rewarded for her patience. And I, who had been faithful for 7 years, who had sacrificed my career and always supported him, was being humiliated right in front of him. "Greg, you're so good to me. Not like my ex, who was a total cheapskate. Even when he took me out to dinner, he was counting every penny," Crystal said, dabbing the corner of her mouth with a linen napkin. "That's why I love you so much. You're the type of man with real class who knows how to treat a woman." Class. That word again. "Relax, Crystal," Gregory said, pouring more wine into her glass. The rich red liquid gleamed under the light like slowly spilled blood. "As long as you're with me, you'll have the best of everything. You won't lack for anything. Money, unlimited credit cards. Trips abroad whenever you want. This is the life, not the mediocrity I've been living in until now. Mediocrity. The life we had built for 7 years was mediocrity." Really unlimited, Crystal's eyes lit up. "Greg, are you sure? Because my wish list is very long." "Absolutely sure. Besides, my business with her will be settled soon," he said, shooting a cold glance at me. "The divorce won't drag on. I've already spoken to my lawyer. The papers are ready. In a month or 2, it will all be over, and then we can move on to the next stage." The next stage. They had already planned everything, their wedding, their life, their future. And I was just an obstacle that needed to be removed. Anna Gregory called out to me in a tone as if he were the most reasonable party in the conversation. I hope you'll cooperate with the divorce proceedings. Don't make things difficult. You can have the house and the car you're using now. I'll take the other assets. Fair, right? Fair. The house worth less than $1 million while he took the investment penthouse, the stocks, the savings, and all other assets valued in the millions. Or do you want something financial compensation? Fine. I'll give you $50,000. Enough to live on for a couple of years. Consider it a thank you for being my wife for 7 years. Though there wasn't anything special about it. $50,000. He thought 7 years of my life were worth only $50,000. Crystal leaned towards Gregory and whispered, but loud enough for me to hear, "Honey, you're being too kind giving her that. If it were me, I'd give her $20,000 at most. After all, she didn't contribute anything besides being a simple housewife." They laughed again, a sound that shattered the last remnants of hope left in my heart. I had heard enough, endured enough. My finger pressed the transfer button on my phone's screen. $785. $280. Left the joint account and landed in my personal one. A confirmation notification popped up. Transfer successful. Then I opened the credit card menu. 5 high-limit supplementary credit cards in Gregory's name, all linked to the main account that I controlled. The combined limit reached over $500,000. The cards he used for all his lavish transactions, including today's lunch. One by one, I blocked them all. Click. Card ending in 4,521 frozen. Click. Card ending in 7,834 frozen. Click. Card ending in 2156 frozen. Click. Card ending in 9,807 frozen. Click. Card ending in 3,342 frozen. Done. I looked up and saw the couple in front of me, still busy enjoying their meal and planning their luxurious life, laughing at my expense. Then I smiled a faint but genuine smile for the first time since I sat down at this table. "Congratulations," I said in a calm voice. "Congratulations to both of you. I hope you'll be very happy." I stood up from my chair, elegantly picked up my handbag, ensuring my every move looked calm and sophisticated, far more sophisticated than the woman sitting across from me in her garish red dress. "Where are you going?" Gregory asked indifferently, not even looking up from his plate. "Home," I replied curtly. "Enjoy your lunch." "Oh, and I don't think you're finished. The waiter mentioned dessert and a second bottle of wine. Order whatever you want. Today is a special day after all." Crystal looked at me confused. "Why are you suddenly being so nice?" I just smiled again. Then I turned and walked away, my head held high, my back straight, and my heart feeling a little lighter for the first time in months. Because I knew that in an hour, the real show would begin, and I couldn't wait to see their faces when their world came crashing down. I walked between the tables with a firm stride, even though my heart was pounding. Each step away from that table felt like a liberation, as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Some patrons looked at me, perhaps guessing that something strange had just happened at that corner table, but I didn't care. I kept walking, with my head held high. The hostess who had seated me earlier was standing by the entrance. Her expression was one of concern when she saw me. "Ma'am, is there anything I can help you with?" she asked cautiously. "No, thank you," I replied with a small smile. "Everything is fine. I just need some fresh air." She nodded, though she seemed doubtful. I stepped out of the restaurant and was met by a pleasant afternoon breeze. The valet immediately approached to fetch my car, but I shook my head. "Just a moment. I'll wait here." I walked over to a small garden area next to the restaurant building. It was a quiet spot with a wooden bench and well-tended plants, the perfect place to compose myself and finish what I had started. Sitting on the bench, I took my phone out of my purse. The screen still showed the banking app with the transfer successful notification, giving me a sense of relief, satisfaction, or perhaps a mix of emotions I couldn't quite define. But I wasn't done yet. I opened the accounts menu again to double-check every detail. The joint account, which previously held over $785,000, now showed a balance of $4.73, just the leftover cents from some forgotten microtransactions. The rest was already safe in my personal account. Next, I opened the credit card history. The 5 cards that were previously active now read temporarily frozen by primary account holder. The cards Gregory relied on for his luxurious lifestyle, the ones he used to buy gifts for Crystal, dine at expensive restaurants, and stay in 5-star hotels when he claimed to be in a late meeting, were all useless. But there was one more thing to do. I opened the menu for our savings and investments. There were 3 certificates of deposit CDs totaling nearly $1.5 million savings we had built together for our future, as he used to say. There was also a brokerage account with a fluctuating value of around $900,000. As the co-owner of the account, I had the right to request an early liquidation, an option we had enabled when we opened the account years ago just in case of an emergency, he had said. Well, this was a very real emergency. I began the process of closing the first CD. The system asked for confirmation, sending a code to my phone number, which was registered as the primary contact. The code arrived. I entered it, and the process began. Request to close CD in progress. Estimated fund availability, 1 to 2 business days. Perfect. I proceeded with the second and third CDs. The process was the same. Within minutes, all our long-term savings were queued for closure. Gregory wouldn't notice until he checked himself. And by then, it would be too late. As for the brokerage account, I couldn't liquidate it immediately due to ownership rules, but I could do something more strategic. I changed the investment strategy from aggressive growth to ultra-conservative, moving all positions from high-growth stocks to money market funds with minimal returns. Not to lose money, but to ensure Gregory couldn't easily profit from those investments while the lawyers hashed it out. Done. I leaned back on the bench, feeling the warmth of the phone in my hands after such intense use. There was still a weight in my chest, but it was accompanied by something else now, something that felt like power. For 7 years, I had always been the one to give in, to be understanding, to be the bigger person in every conflict. And what did I get in return? Humiliation, betrayal, and being treated as if I were worthless. No more. My phone vibrated. It was an email notification from the bank confirming all the transactions I had just made. I reread it, making sure everything was registered correctly. Wire transfer of $785, $280, to personal account of Anna Wallace successful. Freeze on credit card ending in 4,521. Successful. Freeze on credit card ending in 7,834. Successful. Freeze on credit card ending in 2156. Successful. Freeze on credit card ending in 9,807. Successful. Freeze on credit card ending in 3,342. Successful. CD closure request 1 inch progress. CD closure request 2 inches progress. CD closure request 3 inches progress. Investment profile change. Successful. Perfect. I looked at the restaurant building in the distance. From here, I could see the large windows of the dining room, the silhouettes of people enjoying their meals. Somewhere in there, Gregory and Crystal were still immersed in their own world, still laughing, still planning their future on money that no longer existed. I imagined what would happen next. In an hour, maybe less if they ordered something else, they would finish eating satisfied with their lavish meal and expensive wine. Gregory would call the waiter with his typical arrogant gesture, asking for the check with full confidence. Then he would hand over his credit card. The card he thought was limitless, the card that was a symbol of his success. And the payment terminal would beep. Declined. He would try again, thinking it was a system error. Declined again. A second card. A third. A fourth. All declined. Panic would start to set in. He would check his phone, open the banking app, and see the near-zero balance in the joint account. He would be confused, furious, desperate, searching for an explanation for the sudden disappearance of all his money. And in that moment, he would realize that his wife, the one he had just humiliated, the one he had shamed in front of his mistress, the one he considered a nobody, was the one who held the real administrative control over all his financial assets. I smiled faintly, picturing the look on his face. A face that would transform from arrogance to panic, from confidence to shame, from superiority to helplessness. Mrs. Wallace. I flinched. The young waiter from the restaurant was standing in front of me, holding a small tray with a glass of iced lemonade. "Sorry to startle you, ma'am," he said politely. "The hostess and I saw you out here alone and thought you might like a drink. It's on the house." "Oh, thank you so much." I accepted the glass, grateful for the unexpected gesture. "That's very kind of you." The waiter smiled, but his eyes held a look of concern. "Are you all right, ma'am? It's just you seemed— I'm sorry it's not my business, but if you need any help." He didn't finish the sentence, but his intention was clear. They knew something was wrong at that table. Maybe they had overheard part of the conversation, or maybe it was just the intuition that comes from witnessing all sorts of dramas in a luxury restaurant. "I'm fine," I replied with a sincere smile. "Actually, I think I just made the best decision of my life." The waiter nodded slowly, though his face still held a trace of doubt. He gave a slight bow and walked back to the restaurant. I took a sip of the lemonade, feeling the tart freshness balance the bitter taste in my mouth. In the distance, the sky was beginning to change color. Sunset was approaching, creating a gradient of precious orange and gold hues. For the first time in months, I felt like I could take a full, deep breath. My phone vibrated again. This time it was a text from Gregory. "Where are you? You left already. Whatever." Dry cold without asking if I was okay, without a shred of guilt for what he had just done. Just an indifferent message confirming that to him I was already nothing. I didn't reply. Let him enjoy his final moments of glory with Crystal. Let them laugh, joke, and plan their luxurious life. Let Gregory feel like a winner, a successful man who could discard his wife and immediately find someone younger and better. Because in less than an hour, reality would hit him with brutal force, and I would be sitting right here enjoying my cold lemonade waiting for the show to begin. I put my phone back in my purse. I wouldn't be taking any emergency calls or messages from Gregory because I had already muted his notifications. Let him panic alone. Let him feel what it's like to have no one to turn to when you need help, just as I had felt for so long. I finished the lemonade down to the last drop and stood up from the bench. The valet, still at his post, saw me and approached. "My car, please," I said, handing him the ticket. "Right away, ma'am." While I waited, I looked at the restaurant again. Its large windows now reflected the sunset, creating a beautiful but blinding golden glare. I couldn't clearly see what was happening inside, but it didn't matter. I didn't need to see it, because I knew exactly what was about to happen. And for the first time in my 7-year marriage, I was the one in control. I was the one writing the end of this story. My car pulled up. I got in elegantly and closed the door smoothly. Before driving off, I took one last look at the restaurant building. A building that once held sweet memories was now a witness to the demolition of a marriage that had long been broken. "Enjoy your lunch, Gregory," I whispered with a smile, "because it's going to be the most expensive meal of your life." And with that, I stepped on the gas, leaving the Astor behind, leaving the painful past behind, and driving toward a future that was finally my own. Meanwhile, inside the Astor, the atmosphere at the corner table had shifted. Gregory was leaning back languidly in his chair, a half-empty glass of wine in one hand playing with his phone, in the other aimlessly scrolling through his feed, laughing at something he saw on the screen. "Babe, look at this," Gregory said to Crystal, showing her a picture of a sleek, metallic red sports car. "How about we get one of these? It's a limited edition, only 5 in the whole country." Crystal squealed, her eyes sparkling at the photo. "Oh my God, seriously, Greg, that is my dream car, but it must cost a fortune, right?" "A few million, give or take," Gregory replied flippantly, as if talking about pocket change. "But it's no big deal. It's an investment, too. A car like that only appreciates in value. Besides, I want to give you the best." Crystal took his hand on the table, squeezing it with both of hers, a look of faux adoration on her face. "Greg, you're perfect. I can't believe I met such an incredible man. Rich, handsome, and romantic." Of course, Gregory grinned proudly. "That's why I told you from the start. You're nothing like her. You get me, you support my ambitions, and most importantly, you're on my level. You're not a liability." The waiter returned with dessert, a chocolate lava cake with a scoop of vanilla bean ice cream, and raspberry coulis, served on a white plate with an artistic dusting of cocoa powder and edible flowers. The aroma of warm chocolate filled the air, whetting their appetites. "This is our signature dessert, sir," the waiter said politely. "Our pastry chef prepares it to order, so the molten chocolate inside flows out perfectly." "Excellent," Gregory nodded, pleased. "Oh, and the wine is running low. Bring us another bottle of the same. The 2,011 Sassicaia." The waiter hesitated for a fraction of a second. A bottle of that wine cost over $1,000. 2 bottles would be over $2,000 just for the wine. But seeing Gregory's confidence, he just nodded. "Of course, sir. I'll bring it right away." As soon as the waiter left, Crystal broke into the lava cake with her spoon and the molten chocolate flowed out perfectly. This is divine honey. You have to try it." Gregory opened his mouth and accepted a bite from Crystal, looking into her eyes with passion. "Delicious, but not as delicious as you." Crystal let out a silly giggle and playfully slapped his arm. "Oh, you're such a flatterer." "A flatterer, but an honest one," Gregory said, pulling his chair closer to hers and wrapping an arm possessively around her waist. "I'm serious, Crystal. Since I met you, my life has become brighter. It's not so monotonous anymore. Every day is exciting, full of surprises and adventure. This is living." "I love you too," Crystal said, resting her head on his shoulder for a moment, an intimate gesture that drew disapproving glances from a nearby table. But they didn't care. "That's why I can't wait for you to be officially single. Then we can be freer without having to hide." "It won't be long," Gregory whispered loudly. "The lawyer has everything ready. The divorce agreement is just waiting for her signature. In 2 months max, we can be together officially. And then we'll get married and go on a honeymoon to the Maldives or maybe Bart's. Which do you prefer?" Both, Crystal replied enthusiastically, First the Maldives for diving and relaxing on the beach, and then St. Bart's for the parties. Oh, and we'll stay at one of those hotels with private villas, you know, the ones with infinity pools and breathtaking views. I've seen them on Instagram. It's insane. It's a deal, Gregory said, planting a quick kiss on her forehead. I'll give you whatever you want. Besides, I've been thinking about expanding the business into Europe. We can use the trip to scout locations for a new branch. You can come with me to meetings, get a better feel for my business world. Wow, I'd be a wife and a business partner, Crystal said, her eyes shining. Greg, you really want to involve me in your business? Of course, Gregory replied with conviction. You're smart, you're well-connected, and you understand the world of luxury. That's all very valuable for my company. Not like some people who only know their way around a kitchen and an ironing board. They laughed together, a carefree, happy laugh, as if there were nothing wrong with their situation, as if betraying a 7-year marriage was something normal, something to be celebrated. The waiter returned with the second bottle of wine, opened it professionally, and poured a small amount into Gregory's glass for him to taste. Gregory took a sip, letting the complex liquid dance on his palate before swallowing. Perfect, he commented curtly. The waiter filled both their glasses and placed the bottle in an ice bucket next to the table. Will there be anything else, folks? Gregory glanced at the menu one last time. Bring us the premium cheese platter, the one with the truffle cheese. And do you have Dom Perignon? Yes, sir. We have the 2008 or the 2012 vintage. The 2008, Gregory replied without hesitation. A small bottle to finish. Of course, sir. The waiter bowed and left. Crystal looked at Gregory with a mix of awe and disbelief. Honey, are you sure? That's insanely expensive. I read that a bottle of vintage Dom can cost thousands. Relax, Gregory said, patting her hand confidently. Today is a special day. It's like our celebration. A celebration of me finally having the courage to leave the past behind and start the life I really want. So it's worth it. You're the best, Crystal said, planting a quick kiss on his cheek. I'm so lucky I found you. The feeling is mutual, Gregory replied, gazing at her intently. You're the best gift I've ever received. Beautiful, sexy, smart, ambitious, the whole package. Not like some people so bland, no passion for life, no dreams. The poor thing really, Crystal said with feigned sympathy, though her eyes were shining with delight. But what can you do? Not everyone is capable of evolving. Some people get stuck in their comfort zone, they don't want to grow, and so they end up getting left behind. Gregory nodded. I agree. I told her 1,000 times. Develop yourself, learn new things, introduce me to your circle of friends. But she preferred to sit at home and expected me to be content with such a monotonous life. Impossible. The cheese platter arrived a large wooden board laden with a selection of artisanal cheeses from various regions, artfully presented with crackers, dried fruits, honey, and, of course, an aged cheese with black truffle whose price was astronomical. The aroma was intense and distinctive. Now this is what I'm talking about, Gregory exclaimed, taking a piece of the truffle cheese, placing it on a cracker and feeding it to Crystal. Try this. It's exclusive. The cheese is directly imported and the truffle is top quality. Crystal chewed slowly, her eyes wide. Oh my God, that's incredible. The flavor is so intense with those earthy notes from the truffle. Greg, you really know your way around fine dining. Well, of course. I have a lot of business dinners with international clients, Gregory boasted. They appreciate that I understand pairings, cheeses, table etiquette. It's all part of a professional image. That's why I always say in the high-stakes business world, it's not just about skills, but also how you present yourself. I totally agree. Crystal nodded enthusiastically. Image is everything. That's why I always take care of my appearance, stay on top of the latest trends, and network at luxury events. Because our circle has to be on the same level. You can't have one person from the upper class and the other from the general public. They continued to eat leisurely, talking about their future plans, what kind of penthouse they would buy after the wedding, what other cars they would collect, which countries they would visit for their honeymoon. They even talked about the kind of wedding they wanted. I want a garden wedding, Crystal said excitedly, with an elegant and romantic theme. Lots of fresh imported flowers, dramatic lighting, a live jazz band, and my dress has to be from a famous designer custom made, so I'm the center of everyone's attention. Approved. Gregory nodded without hesitation. Unlimited budget for our wedding. I want everyone to know this isn't just any wedding. It's the wedding of two people who are a perfect match, who are on the same level, who were destined for each other. The Dom Perignon arrived in a lavish cooler with 2 flutes made of carved crystal. The waiter opened it with an elegant pop and carefully poured the golden bubbling liquid. For the Mr. and Mrs., he said politely, even though he knew Crystal was not Gregory's legal wife. In the world of hospitality, the customer is always right. Gregory raised his glass, and Crystal followed suit. A toast, Gregory said, to our future, to a better life, and to breaking free from the past that held us back. To us, Crystal replied, clinking her glass against his, producing a melodic crystal chime. They took a slow sip, savoring the fine bubbles and the complex, exquisite taste of a champagne whose price was equivalent to an average worker's monthly salary. Perfect, Gregory said, closing his eyes for a moment to enjoy the moment. This is life. This is what success feels like. Crystal smiled contentedly and took Gregory's hand again on the table. Around them, the restaurant began to fill with the evening crowd. Live music started to play a gentle piano melody that created the perfect romantic atmosphere. For Gregory and Crystal, this was the peak of their happiness. They felt like winners free, with a brilliant future ahead. They had no idea that in less than 30 minutes, their world would come crashing down, and the fall would happen in this very place. In this luxurious restaurant, in front of all the patrons, in front of the same staff, who were now serving them with such reverence. But for now, they continued to bask in the euphoria of their false victory, continuing to laugh, to plan, to feel triumphant, unaware that doom was just around the corner. The hour flew by. Gregory and Crystal remained engrossed in their conversation, laughing loudly from time to time, oblivious to the stares of other patrons. The second bottle of wine was nearly empty, the cheese platter was reduced to crumbs, and they had finished the Dom Perignon to the last drop. "Ugh, I'm so full," Crystal said, leaning back in her chair and patting her stomach, which had rounded slightly after the hearty meal. But so happy. This was one of a kind, the best lunch of my life. "And this is just the beginning, baby," Gregory smiled, satisfied. "When we're officially together, every day can be like this. Lavish dinners, trips, shopping, whatever you want." Crystal picked up her clutch from the chair and opened a small compact mirror to touch up her makeup. Her red lipstick had faded slightly, so she quickly and skillfully reapplied it. "I'm very pleased with today. The food was amazing, the place is stunning. And most importantly, I loved how you handled the situation earlier. Firm, direct, no beating around the bush. That's the way to do it." "Of course," Gregory said, picking up his phone from the table to check the time. "It's already 4:30 p.m. We've been here for quite a while. Let's head to the shops. You said you wanted to look at some bags. Let's go." Crystal perked up again, her eyes shining. "I already have a list of brands I want to check out." "Oh, honey, can I look at some shoes too? I saw a limited edition pair on Instagram yesterday. They were so beautiful." "Buy whatever you want," Gregory replied generously. "Consider it a gift for your patience with me." "I love you so much," Crystal said, kissing him again on the cheek, leaving a faint red lipstick mark. Gregory laughed and wiped the mark with the back of his hand. Then he raised his hand to summon the waiter. "Excuse me, the check, please." The young waiter promptly approached. "Right away, sir." While they waited, Gregory and Crystal planned their shopping route, discussing which stores to visit first, how much time to spend in each, and where they would have dinner that evening. The waiter returned with an elegant black leather folder containing the bill. He placed it discreetly in front of Gregory. "Here you are, sir." Gregory casually opened the folder. His eyes scanned the total at the bottom. The figure was $5,450.73. Over $5,000 for a lunch for three, or rather for two since I had only ordered water. But for Gregory, this figure was not a problem. He was used to such bills and even larger ones. He pulled his premium leather wallet from his pocket and took out his platinum credit card, a card with a high six-figure limit, his trusted card for all major transactions. "Put it on this," he said confidently, handing over the card without looking at the bill again. The waiter took the card and walked towards the cashier station. Gregory turned his attention back to Crystal, who was busy scrolling through Instagram, showing him pictures of designer bags she wanted to buy. "Do you like this one?" Crystal asked, showing him a photo of a Hermes Birkin bag in a soft pink color. "Beautiful." "It would suit you." Gregory nodded. "How much is it?" "Around 25,000, Crystal replied matter-of-factly, as if talking about loose change. "But it's a limited edition, so it's an investment too. If I sell it later, the price will definitely go up." "All right, we'll see later," Gregory replied, though he was slightly taken aback by the figure. 25,000 for a handbag. But he didn't want to seem hesitant in front of Crystal. He had to maintain his image as a wealthy and generous man. Several minutes passed, and the waiter who had taken the card still hadn't returned. Gregory started to feel a little uneasy, but tried to remain calm. Maybe their system is slow, he thought. Or they need extra confirmation for such a large transaction. Finally, the waiter returned, but his expression was strange. It wasn't his usual professional smile. There was a look of doubt in his eyes. "Excuse me, sir," he said quietly, almost in a whisper. There seems to be a problem with the card. The transaction was declined. Declined. Gregory frowned, confused. Declined. That's impossible. That card has a huge limit. It can't be. It must be a system error. Sir, do you have another card we could try? The waiter asked, trying to be as diplomatic as possible. Crystal looked at Gregory with surprise. Honey, what's going on? Nothing's wrong, Gregory replied, quickly trying to reassure her as he took out his wallet again. I'm sure it's just a system error. Banks mess up sometimes. He pulled out a second card, a black card with an even higher limit, one he rarely used, saving it for very large transactions. Try this one. The waiter took the card and walked back to the cashier. Gregory tried to look calm, but his heart began to beat a little faster. This was strange. Very strange. He had used the first card just last week without any issues. Greg, are you sure nothing's wrong? Crystal asked, now a little worried. I'm sure Gregory smiled tightly. Trust me, it's just a technical glitch. But the waiter returned again with an expression even more awkward than before. He even seemed to be sweating a little. I'm very sorry, sir. This card was also declined. Declined again. Now Gregory started to panic, though he tried to hide it. 2 cards declined in a row. This wasn't a technical glitch. Something was very wrong. Just a moment, Gregory said, picking up his phone with a slightly trembling hand. He tried to open his banking app, but a notification on the screen made his blood run cold. Credit card ending in 4,521 has been frozen by the primary account holder. Credit card ending in 7,834 has been frozen by the primary account holder. Frozen by whom? The primary account holder was Anna. With trembling hands, he opened the app, entered his password, and checked the joint checking account. Balance $4.73. $4.73. Gregory stared at the screen in disbelief. It couldn't be. Just this morning, the balance was over $700,000. Where did it go? What happened? He scrolled through the transaction history, and there it was, clear as day. Wire transfer to Anna Wallace. Account number $785, 280. Time 1:47 p.m. Anna. Anna had taken all the money. Anna had frozen all his cards. Anna had done all of this while he was humiliating her in this very restaurant. Sir, the waiter called again, this time more firmly. Do you have another card, or would you prefer to pay with cash? Cash. Gregory never carried that much cash. Who carries over $5,000 in their wallet? Crystal was beginning to understand that something was seriously wrong. Greg, you're pale. What's happening? Just a minute, Crystal. Gregory whispered, tensely checking his phone again, trying a fourth card. They all showed the same status, frozen. The waiter was still standing there waiting patiently, but his face was starting to show concern. Some patrons at nearby tables began to glance in their direction, sensing that something was amiss. Sir, I'm sorry, the waiter said again, this time in a sterner tone. If you can't resolve the payment, I'll have to inform the manager. Just wait a minute, Gregory said, holding up a hand. He tried calling Anna the number he had been ignoring all day, but the call went straight to voicemail. Once, twice, 3 times. All went to voicemail. Anna, pick up the phone. Pick up, he screamed silently. Crystal was now very nervous. Greg, seriously. You're worrying me. What is the problem? It's her, Gregory mumbled, his voice full of disbelief. She took all the money. She froze all my cards. What? Crystal almost shrieked, catching herself at the last moment. The money from the joint account, Gregory replied in a hoarse voice. She transferred the entire balance to her own account. All of it. It's gone. Gone. Crystal stared at him with wide eyes, a mixture of astonishment and anger. All of it. And you told me she was just a simple housewife, that she was a nobody, that she had nothing. Now several patrons were looking directly at them. The whispers had begun. The atmosphere, which was once romantic and pleasant, had turned into a nightmare. And the waiter was still standing there waiting for a payment of over $5,000, a bill that Gregory now had no idea how to pay. Sir, the waiter said again, this time in a very formal and cold tone. I'm going to have to get my manager. Please wait here for a moment. And with that, he turned and walked quickly towards the front of the restaurant. Gregory was frozen in his chair, his face ashen, and a cold sweat began to form on his forehead. All the confidence he had displayed earlier had shattered into a million pieces. And the worst part? This was just the beginning of his real downfall. The next few minutes felt like hours. Gregory sat motionless in his chair, his phone still clutched in a sweaty hand. He tried calling Anna again and again to no avail. He sent her a text in all caps. Anna, pick up. This is an emergency. But the message was only delivered, not read. Ignored. Crystal stared at Gregory with an expression that was beginning to change. It was no longer admiration or love, but something more like disappointment, perhaps even disgust. "So you're broke now?" Crystal asked in a low, sharp voice. "I mean, was all your money in that one account?" "Not all of it," Gregory tried to explain, running a hand over his face in frustration. "I have other assets, the penthouse stocks investments, but they're not liquid right now. It takes time to sell them. But right now you can't pay for this," Crystal said, gesturing to the bill folder still open on the table. Gregory didn't answer. The answer was obvious. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. A man in his 40s, wearing an impeccable black suit and a name tag that read Paul Manager, walked up to their table. His expression was professional but firm. His smile polite but without warmth. "Good afternoon, mister." Wallace Paul said formally. "I'm Paul, the restaurant manager. I was informed there's a small issue with the payment." Gregory tried to sit up straight, attempting to regain some composure. "Yes, it seems there's a technical issue with my credit cards. The bank system must be down." "I understand," Sir Paul nodded calmly. "That does happen sometimes. Do you have an alternative method of payment? A debit card, a wire transfer, or cash?" "The debit card won't work either," Gregory replied, his voice hollow. "My main account is frozen, but I can make a transfer later once this is sorted out." "I'm sorry, sir," Paul interrupted politely but firmly. "Restaurant policy requires that payment be made immediately after service. We cannot defer it or accept a promise of future payment." The patrons at the nearby tables were no longer being subtle. They were staring openly at their table. The whispers grew louder. "That's the guy who is ordering all the most expensive stuff. Looks like he can't pay. What an embarrassment." And in front of his girlfriend. Crystal heard the whispers, and her face flushed with anger or shame. "Greg," she whispered urgently, "do something. I'm not going to be humiliated here." "I'm trying," Gregory shot back, his voice low but tense. He looked at his banking app again, searching for any other account he might have forgotten, but all accounts linked to the joint one showed the same status: funds transferred or cards frozen. He remembered the CDs. Yes, the CDs. He had 3 of them, totaling nearly $1.5 million. He could do an early withdrawal. With trembling fingers, he opened the savings menu in the app, and his eyes widened as he saw the status of all 3. CD 1. Closure in progress at the request of primary account holder Anna Wallace. CD 2. Closure in progress at the request of primary account holder Anna Wallace. CD 3. Closure in progress at the request of primary account holder Anna Wallace. Anna. Again, Anna. She had done everything. She had taken the money, frozen the cards, and even requested closure of the CDs. She had planned everything calmly with millimeter precision. And Gregory had just realized that the woman he had humiliated, whom he had despised, whom he considered a nobody, was the woman who had held complete control over his finances all along. Paul was still standing there, waiting patiently, but his expression was growing tense. "So, sir, have you found a solution?" I can call my brother Gregory, finally," said his voice barely audible. His pride was completely shattered. He had to ask for help. He had to admit that he couldn't pay for his own lunch. "Please do, sir," Paul allowed, but he didn't move. He would wait until the problem was solved. Gregory called his brother Michael a successful businessman, with whom he didn't have a very close relationship because Gregory had always felt superior. The phone rang several times before Michael answered. "Hello, Greg. What's up?" Michael's voice came through. "Mike, I need your help," Gregory whispered, trying to keep other patrons from hearing. "I'm in trouble. Can you transfer me some money right now? It's an emergency." "An emergency? Why? With all your money, you need to borrow money." Michael's voice was skeptical. "Don't ask. I need $6,000 right now. Transfer it to my account, or to the restaurant's details." "I'll send them to you." There was a pause. $6,000. For what, please, Mike? I'm in a tough spot. I'll explain later. Just transfer it now. I promise I'll pay you back in a week." Michael sighed on the other end. "Fine, but this is the last time. Don't make a habit of asking. Sending it now. Wait. Thank you." "Thank you so much," Gregory said, hanging up with a sense of relief, though his face remained pale. Paul was still there. "Are you making a transfer, sir?" "Yes. My brother is sending it right now." "Just a moment, please," Gregory replied, wiping the sweat from his brow with a napkin. While they waited, the atmosphere at the table was unbearable. Crystal sat with her arms crossed, staring away with an angry face. She kept glancing at her phone as if looking for an excuse to escape. Gregory tried reaching for her hand. Crystal snatched it away. "Don't touch me. Crystal, please. This isn't my fault. It's all her fault." "Her fault." Crystal sneered, glaring at him. You told me she was a simple housewife, that she didn't understand anything. But it turns out she's the one who controls all your money. She has access to all your accounts, and you can't even pay for lunch without begging for help. The words hit Gregory harder than a physical slap, because they were true. He had been too arrogant, too sure that he was in control. But all along it had been Anna holding the reins. Gregory's phone buzzed, a notification from his banking app. Incoming wire transfer from Michael Wallace, $6,000. Zero. It's here, Gregory said quickly to Paul. The transfer from my brother has arrived. I can wire it to the restaurant's account now. Very good, sir. Please transfer it to these details, Paul said, handing him a business card with the restaurant's banking information. Gregory made the transfer with trembling hands. $5,450.73 to the restaurant's account. The notification "Transfer Successful" appeared on the screen. Done, Gregory said, showing the screen to Paul. Paul checked his own device, receiving a confirmation from the cashier that the funds had been received. Thank you, sir. The payment has been received, he said with a slight bow, but with a look that betrayed his judgment. Judgment for the man who had been so arrogant earlier and had now fallen into the deepest humiliation. As soon as Paul left, Gregory collapsed back into his chair as if all his energy had been drained. Some patrons were still looking at him and whispering with judgmental expressions. We're leaving, Crystal said, suddenly standing up and hastily grabbing her purse. Crystal, wait! Wait for what she shot back, looking at him coldly. To be humiliated even more. No thank you, Greg. I'm not interested in being part of your drama. What do you mean, Gregory said, also standing up and trying to grab her arm. I mean, Crystal said, yanking her arm away. I made the wrong choice. I thought you were a winner, a successful man who had everything. But it turns out you're just a man with a wife who's smarter than you. And now you have nothing. The words stabbed right into Gregory's heart. Crystal, don't say that. This is all temporary. I'll sort it out. I'll get all that money back, I promise. Promise, Crystal laughed cynically. You also promised to buy me anything I wanted, but you can't even pay for lunch. I'm sorry, Gregory. I'm not interested in men who have to borrow money from their brother to pay a restaurant bill. And with those words, Crystal turned and walked away. The sound of her heels echoed on the marble floor. Some patrons watched her go, others snickered, having witnessed the whole drama unfold. Gregory was left standing alone in the middle of the luxurious restaurant that just an hour ago had been the stage for his triumph. Now the same place was a witness to his most humiliating downfall. His phone vibrated again. A message from Anna. Just one short sentence. Now that is class, Gregory. Enjoy your freedom. Gregory stared at the screen with unseeing eyes. All his arrogance, his false confidence, his beautiful plans for the future, all had crumbled in an instant. And the most painful part was the certainty that he had brought it all upon himself. He had underestimated the woman who had always supported him. He had forgotten that behind every successful man there is sometimes a woman who is much smarter. A woman who silently holds the real control. And now he had lost everything, the money, the woman, the pride. Everything was lost in one humiliating afternoon at the Astor. Gregory remained standing, paralyzed by the table, watching Crystal's back as she retreated towards the restaurant's exit. A few seconds later, the large glass door swung shut, and her figure vanished from his sight, disappearing from his life as quickly as she had appeared. Sir, is there anything else we can help you with? Paul's voice snapped him out of his trance. Gregory turned to see the manager still standing nearby his face, professional and unreadable. Behind him, a few waiters stood with trays in hand, ready to clear the table, waiting for Gregory to leave so they could continue their work. No thank you, Gregory replied, his voice hoarse. He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair and awkwardly put it on. His trembling hands made the simple action feel like an impossible task. As he turned to leave, his steps faltered. At a neighboring table, a middle-aged couple watched him sipping their wine with a look that mixed sympathy, judgment, and a hint of satisfaction at seeing such an arrogant man fall. Poor thing, the woman whispered to her husband, but loud enough for Gregory to hear. He was so haughty before. Serves him right for cheating, the husband replied moralistically. In the end, everyone pays for their actions. Gregory clenched his fists, holding back the anger and shame that consumed him. But there was nothing he could do. He had no right to object. He was at fault. He had brought all of this on himself. He continued his walk to the exit, but each step was torture, as if he were dragging a weight of several tons. The whispers from other tables followed him like ghosts. That's the one who was shouting that his wife had no class. Karma's quick, isn't it? The girlfriend dumped him. He's broke. What a joke. The hostess who had greeted him with such courtesy earlier now only gave him a strained, professional smile without any warmth. "Thank you for your visit, sir. Have a good day." Gregory just nodded, not daring to meet her eyes. He knew that the entire restaurant staff already knew his story. They knew he couldn't pay, that he had to ask for help, that his girlfriend had left him in disgust. This story would be the gossip of the day. Maybe tomorrow or the day after, the story would spread to other restaurants, to the high society circles that frequented such places. And the name Gregory Wallace, a name he used to be so proud of, would become a laughingstock for everyone. The glass door opened automatically. A gust of afternoon air hit his face, but instead of refreshing him, it felt suffocating. He walked unsteadily towards the parking garage looking for his car, a metallic black BMW 7 Series that had always been his pride. The valet approached with his keys. "Your car is ready, sir." Gregory took the keys, but his hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped them. The valet caught them midair. "Are you all right, sir?" the young man asked with genuine concern. "Yes, I'm fine," Gregory lied. Nothing about his situation was fine. He got into the car and slammed the door shut. Alone in the luxurious interior that used to make him feel superior, he now felt only a vast emptiness. His phone vibrated again. A text from Michael. "Greg, seriously, what happened? How do you need money to pay at a restaurant? Did you have a fight with Anna? Solve your family problems? Don't embarrass the family. Embarrass the family." The words cut him deep. Gregory didn't reply. He threw the phone onto the passenger seat in frustration. He rested his head on the steering wheel, breathing heavily. All his beautiful plans, a honeymoon in the Maldives and street. Bart's, a multi-million-dollar sports car, a lavish wedding with an unlimited budget, now sounded like a stupid joke. He couldn't even pay for his own lunch. A bitter laugh escaped his throat, an ironic, pathetic laugh full of regret. His phone vibrated again, this time an unknown number. He reluctantly answered. "Good afternoon, Mr. Wallace. I'm calling from the bank, from the credit card department. We would like to confirm the freezing of 5 credit cards in your name initiated by the primary account holder, Mrs. Anna Wallace. Were you aware of this?" Gregory was silent. So now it was official. Even the bank was calling to confirm. "Yes, I was aware," he replied in a flat voice. "I see, sir. To reactivate the cards, you will need to visit a branch in person with the primary account holder or with a signed authorization from her. Would you like to?" "No need," Gregory interrupted. "Thank you." He hung up before the bank employee could finish. Go with Anna or ask for her permission. Impossible. Anna would never help him now. She would probably laugh if she heard his request. He started the engine but didn't move. He looked in the rearview mirror at the restaurant building, the Astor, the building that just hours ago had been the stage for his triumph, the place where he had boasted about his new and better life. Now that building was a monument to his most shameful defeat. His phone vibrated again. This time, a notification from a social media app. Someone had tagged him in a video. With a sense of dread, Gregory opened the app. The video had been secretly filmed by one of the restaurant's patrons. You couldn't see who was filming, but the angle captured the moment Gregory stood there with a pale face talking to Paul. Then the moment Crystal stood up and left him. The caption on the video read, "Arrogant guy who flaunted his mistress and humiliated his wife ends up unable to pay the restaurant bill. Number karma, number instant karma, number cheater, number humiliated." The video already had nearly 10,000 views in less than half an hour. The comments were pouring in. Good for his wife. She's a queen. Serves him right. Don't cheat. He got humiliated in the end. The girl bolted the second the money was gone. LOL. She was only there for the cash. Who is this guy? His face looks familiar. I know him. That's Gregory Wallace, the businessman who's always showing off on Instagram. Wow, what a fall from grace. Gregory Wallace's name was starting to spread. People recognized him. The story was going viral. With trembling hands, Gregory tried to untag himself from the video, but it was too late. The video had already been shared in several text threads reposted on other platforms, and had even made its way to gossip forums. Gregory slammed his fist on the steering wheel several times, letting out the anger and despair he could no longer contain. Everything he had built for years, his reputation as a successful businessman, his image as a wealthy and stylish man, the respect of his social circle, all destroyed in less than 2 hours because of a stupid lunch, because of his excessive pride, because of his underestimation of the woman he should have valued. Another notification came in, this time from the messaging group for his professional network, a group of young, successful entrepreneurs he was so proud of. Someone had shared the video in the group with the comment, "Guys, isn't this Greg? What happened, man?" The comments started flowing. Seriously, that's Greg. I don't believe it. Isn't he the one always bragging about his money? How could he not pay? Looks like wife problems. I've heard rumors. What a drama, dude. Burning with shame, Gregory left the group. But leaving the group didn't solve the problem. Notifications kept coming from other groups of friends, sending him screenshots of the video with questions. Is this you? What happened, man? He turned off the cellular data on his phone, unable to see anymore. But the damage was done. The story was already out there. And in the digital age, once something goes viral, it's impossible to stop. Gregory stared ahead with a lost gaze, his hands still gripping the steering wheel. Though the engine was running, he didn't know where to go. Back to the penthouse. The penthouse that was still full of Anna's things, memories of their 7 years of marriage or to a hotel. But with his credit cards frozen and his checking account empty, he wasn't even sure he could afford. Adechant Hotel. The phone with its data turned off suddenly rang. A call from the office, his own office. With a bad feeling, he answered. Hello, Mr. Wallace. This is Sarah from finance. His financial assistant's voice sounded strange. Sorry to bother you, but we received a notification from the bank that several automatic company transactions that run on your corporate card have been declined. Is there a problem with the card? Even the company transactions were affected. Even his job was at risk. Sarah, use a different corporate card for now. Okay, my card is under maintenance, Gregory lied, his voice weary. Okay, sir. But you have a meeting with the important client from Singapore tomorrow. The presentation is ready. The meeting with the important client. The presentation. Professionalism. How could he focus on any of that when his life was falling apart, when his reputation was being dragged through the mud, when a video of him was going viral? Yes, I'm ready. We'll talk at the office tomorrow, Gregory replied, quickly ending the call. He threw the phone again harder this time, so the screen cracked in the corner. Perfect. Even his phone was broken now. Gregory finally stepped on the gas and sped out of the restaurant's parking garage, causing the valet and a few arriving patrons to turn in surprise. But Gregory no longer cared. He just wanted to escape from there, escape from the witnesses of his fall, escape from the place where his arrogance had become his shame. As his car sped down the road, Gregory didn't realize that somewhere on the balcony of a quiet penthouse with a beautiful view of the city, Anna was sitting relaxed with a cup of hot coffee, smiling faintly as she read the notification of the transfer that had just arrived in her account. The fruit of her 7 years of work, the fruit of a patience that had finally borne the fruit of justice. And for the first time in months, Anna slept deeply, with a smile on her lips, peace in her heart, and a soul that was finally free. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Gregory sat alone in his car, parked on a dark street, staring into the void with a broken heart and an uncertain future. And the most bitter lesson he learned that night was that you should never underestimate a silent woman, because behind her silence, she might be planning her victory. 3 days had passed since the humiliating incident at the Astor. 3 days that felt like 3 years for Gregory. He didn't go back to the penthouse he shared with Anna. He couldn't bear to see the things that reminded him of the life he had destroyed. Instead, he checked into a rundown motel, not a 5-star hotel like the ones he was used to, but a cramped room with minimal amenities. It was the only thing he could afford with the little cash he had left. That morning, Gregory sat on the edge of the stiff motel bed staring at his phone's cracked screen. The notifications kept coming, though he tried to ignore them. The video from the restaurant had already surpassed 2 million views. Gossip portals had started publishing articles with sensational headlines. Successful businessman Gregory Wallace, can't pay at luxury restaurant, wife controls all the money. Cheating ends in humiliation. The story of instant karma for an arrogant husband. This woman gets revenge in the most elegant way, transfers all money and freezes, cheating husband's cards. Even Anna's name was being mentioned, though her face didn't appear in the video. Internet users were praising her, turning her into a kind of hero for cheated wives. And Gregory, he was the villain of the story, the one who deserved his karma, a public laughingstock. His phone vibrated again. Another call from the office. Sarah, his assistant, had called him 10 times since yesterday. He had missed the meeting with the client from Singapore that was scheduled for yesterday. He hadn't shown up, hadn't given any warning, just disappeared. This time he answered, "Hello." Mr. Wallace, Sarah's voice sounded relieved, but also nervous. "Where have you been?" The client from Singapore waited for 2 hours yesterday. They were very disappointed and are now threatening to terminate the contract. The CEO is furious. He's asking you to come to the office immediately for an explanation. Gregory rubbed his face, covered in a scruffy beard. "Sarah, I can't come to the office right now." What do you mean you can't? Sarah's voice was incredulous. Sir, this is serious. If this contract is terminated, the company will lose millions. And the CEO said that if you don't come in today, he will reevaluate your position in the company. Reevaluate his position. A polite way of saying, you're fired. I understand. Gregory replied in a flat voice. Tell the CEO I'll be there this afternoon. He hung up before Sarah could ask anything else. Gregory looked at himself in the small mirror in the motel room. A man with swollen eyes, a hollow face, disheveled hair, and a budding beard. There was no trace of the successful businessman's aura he had been so proud of. Just a broken man. He took a shower in cold water because the motel's water heater was faulty. He put on a wrinkled shirt because he hadn't had time to iron it. He didn't even have a decent change of clothes. All his good clothes were left in the penthouse with Anna. And he didn't dare go back. The trip to the office took 40 minutes. On the way, Gregory tried to prepare an explanation to find a reasonable excuse for his absence yesterday, but there was no good enough reason, no excuse for his unprofessionalism. When he arrived at the office, he immediately noticed the difference. The receptionist, who always greeted him with a smile, now kept her head down, pretending to be busy with her computer. The employees, who usually greeted him with respect, now only gave him a fleeting glance before looking away. Some whispered as he passed. He knew they were talking about him. They had surely seen the video, surely read the articles. Sarah was waiting for him at the door of his office with a worried face. Mr. Wallace, it's good you're here. The CEO is waiting for you in his office. He told me to have you go see him as soon as you arrived. All right, Gregory replied curtly. He walked towards the CEO's office, a large room with a huge panoramic window overlooking the city. The CEO, Mr. Wallace. No relation. A 60-year-old man with gray hair and gold-rimmed glasses sat behind his desk with a very serious expression. Sit down, Gregory, he ordered, without his usual cordial greeting. Gregory sat in the chair opposite, feeling an unbearable tension. Do you know why I called you in, Mr. Wallace? Asked bluntly. Because of yesterday's meeting. I'm very sorry, sir. I had a very urgent personal problem. A personal problem, Mr. Wallace interrupted sharply. Gregory, you're a department head. You manage multi-million-dollar projects. Clients trust you. And you're telling me about a personal problem without giving any warning, without delegating? Do you know that this client from Singapore represented an opportunity for expansion into all of Southeast Asia? I know, sir, and I'm very sorry. I'll call them. I'll apologize. They've already terminated the contract, Mr. Wallace said, placing a document on the desk. They sent an official termination letter this morning, citing a lack of confidence in our team's professionalism. The loss to the company from this termination is $30 million. The figure was like a hammer blow to Gregory's head. Sir, I'm asking you to give me a chance to fix this. I can find other clients. I can. Gregory, Mr. Wallace said, looking at him with deep disappointment. I've known you since you joined this company as a graduate. I promoted you, I trusted your abilities. But lately I've been hearing a lot about you. This viral video, the problems with your wife, a questionable lifestyle. So even his boss had seen the video. That's my personal life, sir. It has nothing to do with my work. Nothing to do with it, Mr. Wallace raised an eyebrow. Gregory, your reputation is the company's reputation. When a client looks you up and finds a video of you unable to pay at a restaurant because your wife took all your money, what do you think they think about your ability to manage a project's finances? When they read articles about your infidelity and how you belittle your wife, what do you think? They think about your character and your integrity. Every word was like the lash of a whip. I've spoken with the board of directors, Mr. Wallace continued, and we have decided to suspend you for 1 month without pay. During this time, you are to resolve your personal issues, clean up your reputation, and prove that you deserve this position. If the situation has not improved after 1 month, we will permanently reevaluate your position in the company. Suspended and without pay. No income for a whole month. And right now, he didn't even have enough money to live decently. I understand, sir, Gregory said, his voice cracking. There was no point in arguing. The decision had been made. And one more thing, Mr. Wallace added. That watch you're wearing, that Patek Philippe you bought, with the advance from last year's project? I hope it wasn't with funds that were meant for operational expenses. Gregory froze. His watch, the $60,000 watch, he had indeed bought with a project advance. Money that was supposed to go to operational costs, but that he had used for his lifestyle, intending to pay it back with his annual bonus. It was with my personal money, sir, he lied. Mr. Wallace stared at him intently, with an expression that made it clear he didn't believe him. I certainly hope so, Gregory. Because if it turns out there has been misappropriation of company funds, the consequences won't be a suspension, but criminal charges. The threat hung in the air like a guillotine. You can go now. Sarah will handle the transfer of your duties to a temporary department head while you're suspended. Give her all important documents and access. Gregory stood up on trembling legs, gave a slight bow, something he rarely did, then walked unsteadily out of the office. Outside, Sarah was waiting for him with a cardboard box. Sir, this is for your personal belongings from your desk. I've already prepared it. They had even prepared a box for his things as if they already knew he would be suspended. Gregory walked to his desk. The corner desk with the best view, which used to be his pride, now felt alien. He packed photos, personal documents, a luxury pen, and a few other small items into the box. His colleagues watched him from their desks. No one said hello, no one asked anything. Everyone knew what had happened and didn't want to get involved. As he left the office with the box in his hands, he passed the coffee station. He heard whispers that suddenly stopped when he appeared, but he managed to catch a fragment of the conversation. That's why you don't mess with a wife who controls the money. Karma for cheating and being arrogant. They say he bought the watch with project money, not his own. He quickened his pace, unable to listen anymore. In the lobby, the security guard, who usually opened the door for him with respect, now just gave a curt nod. No more. Have a good day, Mr. Wallace. Just a cold gesture and a judgmental look. He put the box in the trunk of his car parked in the basement. After closing the trunk, his phone vibrated again. This time it wasn't a call from the bank, but an official email. Subject: notification of CD closures and account status change. The email explained that the 3 CDs totaling nearly $1.5 million had been closed at the request of Anna Wallace, and the funds transferred to a personal account in Anna's name. The email also informed him that the joint account between Gregory and Anna had changed its status. Now only Anna had full access as the sole owner. Gregory no longer had access to anything, not the joint account, not the savings, not the investments. Everything had been transferred or re-registered. Anna had officially severed all their financial ties. And Gregory now had absolutely nothing. He sat in the driver's seat staring into the void of the gray basement wall. The cardboard box with his work belongings was in the trunk. The phone with the cracked screen was in his hand. The $60,000 Patek Philippe watch was still on his wrist, but now that watch was like a chain, a reminder of his arrogance and his mistakes. He remembered Crystal's words as she left him at the restaurant, "You're just a man with a wife who's smarter than you. And now you have nothing." In the end, those words turned out to be true. Gregory took off the watch and stared at it for a long time. It was the only valuable asset he had left. And maybe, just maybe, he would have to sell it to survive this month. The painful irony. The watch he used to boast about as a symbol of success would now have to be sold to cover his basic needs. With a sense of complete despair, Gregory started the car and drove out of the office basement. The office he might not return to after his suspension. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Anna was sitting peacefully on the balcony of her new, elegant apartment. An apartment she had rented with the transferred money. She was drinking coffee while reading an email from the lawyer she had hired. The email confirmed that the divorce petition was ready. All that was left was for Anna to sign it, and the process would begin. But Anna was in no hurry to sign. She would let Gregory feel the consequences of his actions first. She would let him learn the meaning of the word class, which he had mocked so much. And when the time was right, Anna would handle everything in the most elegant way, with her head held high, her pride intact, and a brilliant future ahead. Because that was what true victory meant. Not a victory of shouting and noise, but a quiet, calculated victory that leaves a trail of justice in its wake. 3 weeks had passed since the incident at the Astor. 3 weeks that changed everything. That afternoon, Anna was sitting peacefully on the balcony of her new apartment. It was a moderately sized one-bedroom with a minimalist, modern interior and a beautiful view of the city from the 20th floor. It wasn't as luxurious as the place she used to live with Gregory, but it had something different. It had warmth, peace, a genuine sense of belonging. It was her space, completely hers, without the shadows of a painful past. Anna was sipping coffee from her favorite white ceramic mug, watching the sunset. A gradient of orange, pink, and purple painted the sky in the most beautiful way. A light evening breeze played with her loose hair. Her phone on the small table vibrated. A notification. But this time it wasn't from Gregory, who had continued to try to contact her from various numbers that she systematically blocked. It was a notification from her banking app. Incoming wire transfer, $450, 150. Memo CD, closure, 3. Anna smiled faintly. The last of the CDs had been fully liquidated. Combined with her existing balance, her total liquid assets now amounted to nearly $2.5 million. It was enough to start a new life with stability, maybe even to open the small business she had always dreamed of. But it wasn't the money that made her smile. It was the freedom, the ability to breathe deeply without facing daily humiliation, the feeling that she had finally regained control of her own life. Her phone vibrated again, this time a call from a familiar number, her lawyer, Miss Romanova. "Hello, Miss Romanova." Anna greeted her voice calm. "Anna, good news, miss," Romanova said in a professional but warm tone. "Our divorce petition has been accepted. The first hearing is scheduled in 2 weeks, and it looks like the process will be swift. The evidence we have is very strong." That evidence included screenshots of Gregory's text messages with Crystal, which Anna had found on their shared laptop months ago, messages full of sweet nothings and plans for the future. There were also photos of the two of them in various places that Crystal had posted on social media with unambiguous captions. And of course, the viral video of the restaurant incident, which was now public proof. "Thank you, counselor," Anna replied. "I'm ready for the hearing." "Remember, Anna," Miss Romanova added more seriously, "it's very likely that Gregory's side will try to negotiate the division of assets, especially now that he knows you control most of the liquid funds. You need to be mentally prepared for that." "I am prepared, counselor," Anna replied firmly. "I know my rights and I won't let them manipulate me anymore." After hanging up, Anna looked out at the city again. From here, she could see the tall buildings, the busy streets, a life that didn't stop. Life didn't stop for a failed marriage. The world kept spinning and she needed to move forward. Her phone vibrated again. A message from her best friend Elena, who had been by her side through the toughest moments. "Anna, have you eaten? I made my signature paella. Want me to drop some off?" Anna smiled as she read the message. At least amidst the collapse of her marriage, she realized who the people who truly cared about her were. Not because of her status or money, but because of genuine friendship. "Of course I'm on the balcony." "Come right up," Anna replied. 15 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Anna opened the door to Elena, a woman with a wide smile and 2 food containers filled with still hot paella. "Anna," Elena exclaimed, giving her a tight hug. "How are you today? You look better than last week." "I'm okay," Anna replied, sincerely. "Actually better every day." They sat at the small dining table, opened the containers, and began to eat and talk. Elena told her about her work, about her son, who had just started school, about the small everyday things that were simple but pleasant. "So I saw that viral video," Elena said cautiously after a while. "Well, not your video, but the one from the restaurant. People are really supportive of you. A lot of people are saying you're a genius and an inspiration." Anna chuckled. "Honestly, I didn't expect it to go viral. I just wanted to take back what was mine. I wanted to show him that I'm not a weak woman he can despise." "And you did," Elena said gently, taking her hand. "Anna, I'm so proud of you. I used to see you cry over him because he wouldn't come home, and now you're smiling again. You're standing on your own 2 feet. That's not easy." "Thank you, Elena," Anna replied, squeezing her hand. "You're one of the reasons I was strong. You were always there when I needed you." They continued to eat in a warm atmosphere. When they finished, Elena helped clear the table and wash the dishes. Though Anna protested, Elena insisted on helping. "Oh, Anna," Elena said, drying her hands. "I ran into an old colleague of yours from your previous company yesterday. He was asking about, you said they're looking for a freelance consultant for a marketing project. I gave him your contact info. Is that okay, just in case you're interested?" Anna paused for a moment. Go back to work. Since leaving her job 7 years ago to dedicate herself to being a housewife at Gregory's request, she hadn't thought about returning to the professional world. But now? Now she was free. Free to choose what she wanted. "Of course," Anna replied with a smile. "Give him my contact. Who knows, it might be a good opportunity." After Elena left, Anna returned to the balcony with a cup of hot tea. The sky was dark now, and the city lights twinkled like stars on the ground. From this height, everything looked beautiful, orderly, peaceful. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Cautiously, Anna opened it. "Anna, it's me. Please, we need to talk. I'm begging you. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Please answer my call or give me a chance to meet. Please." It was Gregory using another number. Anna stared at the message for a long time. A small part of her heart, the part that once loved this man, deeply fluttered at reading the words "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Words that had never escaped Gregory's lips in their 7 years of marriage. But Anna had learned her lesson. Remorse that comes only after everything is lost is not sincere remorse. It is just fear of the consequences. With a steady hand, Anna typed a reply. "Gregory, what happened at the restaurant was the result of your own decisions. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. I only reclaimed what was rightfully mine from the beginning. The money from the joint account was mostly the fruit of my labor before I left my job. We built the savings together and now it's all in safe hands. My lawyer will be in contact with yours regarding the divorce. I hope you'll cooperate. It's over, Gregory. And I'm okay with that. She hit send without hesitation and then blocked that number too. No more messages, no more negotiations, no more belated apologies. Anna left her phone on the table, walked to the edge of the balcony, and spread her arms as if to embrace the entire city. The night wind blew, carrying with it the sweet scent of freedom. Now that is class, Gregory, she whispered with a triumphant smile. Not an arrogant victory, but an elegant and dignified one. Not with shouting and noise, but with the quiet, calculated calm of someone who knows her own worth. And now, it's my turn to live with class. For real. On the other side of town, Gregory sat alone in the cramped and stuffy room of his motel. His phone displayed the last message from Anna before his new number was blocked. He reread it again and again, each word like a knife, slowly cutting his heart. He had sold his Patek Philippe watch last week for much less than its actual value because he desperately needed the cash. The money from the sale was already almost gone, spent on basic living expenses and payments on credit cards that were piling up. He had 1 week of his suspension left, but he didn't know if the company would take him back. And even if they did, his position would probably never be the same. Maybe he would be demoted with a drastically reduced salary. His reputation in the professional world was ruined. His social circle had turned its back on him. He hadn't heard from Crystal again. She had probably already found a new target with more class. And Anna, the woman he once considered a nobody, was now a symbol of strength and independence. Her story was inspiring many women, while he had become a cautionary tale. An example of what happens when arrogance and betrayal meet justice. Gregory looked up at the cracked ceiling of the room. Tears began to well up in his eyes. Tears of belated remorse. Tears for an irretrievable loss. And somewhere in the same city, Anna continued to stand on her balcony, smiling at the stars, her heart finally at peace. Sometimes life pairs us with the wrong person, not because fate is cruel, but because it's a lesson we need to learn. Anna had learned that love without respect is a poison that kills slowly. She had learned that constant kindness doesn't change someone who doesn't want to change. And most importantly, she had learned that the value of letting go is the noblest value of all. Now Anna was starting a new chapter. Not as a cheated wife, not as a victim, but as a woman who had risen with elegance, with her head held high, and with a future she held in her own hands. And for you who are reading this story, remember you are worthy, you deserve respect. And if someone constantly puts you down, maybe it's time to show them who really has class. Thank you for reading Anna's story to the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories. Leave a like, share with your friends, and let us know in the comments what you think about how Anna handled her husband's betrayal. Did she do the right thing? Or was she too harsh? See you in the next story.